Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us on this short webinar to answer your questions on live blood analysis and the training course. I'm Elizabeth, the organizer at Live Blood Online, and Dr. Ocker, your tutor, is also here to answer your questions. So thank you very much for sending your questions in. We've got a lot of questions here and we'll be answering them. We'll also be answering live questions here on the webinar. If you do have any further questions, please post them. If you have any questions, please post them in the questions box in the panel on your screen. We'll give you some time to locate it. It is, you will see a panel on your screen, and it's usually the, they've changed it again, they do keep changing it. It is usually the fourth button down. If you can locate the box there and just say OK, we'll know that you've found it OK. Just so we know that you are able to put your questions in the box there, and then we'll be able to answer them. So give you some time to locate the box. OK, thank you. Thank you. Yep, if you can just put OK in the box, I'll know that you've all got it OK. Great. Okay. Good. So this is where you put the questions, and Dr. Ocker will be able to answer them for you. Meanwhile, you'll also be able to find information about the training course, the course outline, the dates, how to enroll, etc. at livebloodonline.com. So that's www.livebloodonline.com. Okay. So let's get started with some of the questions that you've sent in. Hello, Dr. Ocker. Are you ready?
Yes, hi Elizabeth, and welcome everyone. I'm ready to go.
Marvelous. So the first question is, does live blood analysis involve the drawing of blood? Which is a very common question.
Absolutely. Well, no, it doesn't really involve the drawing of blood, not in terms of drawing blood from a vein with a syringe. It is a relatively non-invasive process where collected from a finger prick, similar to the finger pricks that diabetics have to do to monitor their own blood sugar.
Thank you. Can I join the training course with my bright field microscope?
Well, yes, it is possible. We do get attendees that join with standard sort of basic bright field microscopes, and they're able to practice on these microscopes, they're able to get familiar with the taking and preparation of blood samples for blood analysis, and to get used to working with a microscope, and also of course to identify some of the anomalies that one is able to see in bright field, and that would of course include dry blood analysis as well. There are, however, a large number of anomalies that can only really be seen in dark field, and dark field is quite an important aspect of live blood analysis. So we do recommend, if you're planning to use live blood analysis in practice, that it would be a good idea to invest in a proper dark field microscope before actually seeing actual paying clients, simply because there's a large number of anomalies that you would potentially be missing if you're just working with a bright field microscope.
Thank you. And do you provide training in microscopes, use of microscopes?
Well, yes, absolutely. That's part of the course. We do have some standard videos and training available on the use of microscopes. A large part of that is included in the actual training on looking at blood samples after you've taken the blood samples, and we do additional support to our attendees as well with, regards to any sort of technical questions they might have with their microscopes.
Thank you. And is it mandatory to have a microscope in order to follow the training course?
Well, it's not really necessary to have a microscope right at the beginning of the course. It's actually possible to go through the lessons and learn all the theory before going on to the practical aspects, where a microscope will actually be needed. Many of attendees do it this way, but it is important to mention that we only issue a certificate to an attendee after reviewing their case studies. To complete your case studies, you would of course have to have access to a microscope.
Thank you. Is there any research to back live blood analysis up?
Well, yes, there have been a number of studies. Now, it is often called a pseudoscience, and it is criticized in that there's no scientific research behind it, that it's some sort of to sell products. However, much of what we see in live blood samples have been researched and proven many years ago already in conventional hematology. There are other anomalies in live and dry blood that were identified clinically by researchers working with live and dry blood analysis over the course of many years. Now, many of relate to conditions that can't really be tested for with conventional investigations. So they are quite difficult to verify then in a way that's acceptable to conventional medicine, but you always see the anomalies respond to the recommended interventions. Now, with regards to actual research, there have been a number of small studies that have shown a very strong correlation between findings in live blood analysis and conventional blood tests. Now, because live blood analysis is much more sensitive than conventional blood tests, this is not something that can be done for all live blood analysis anomalies, but in some of these, I looked at anomalies that can be easily detected in conventional blood tests. So, for example, anemia indicators in patients with iron deficiency anemia, liver indicators in patients with liver disease, and so on. And live blood analysis was shown to be very accurate in these cases. In one study, for example, the authors were able to demonstrate an equal sensitivity between dark field microscopy and standard chemistry analysis for the variables that were studied. A number of other studies and conference papers have shown a strong and positive correlation between pathology markers and dark field microscopy, but these are mostly retrospective clinical observations and reports on single patients or small groups. And there was another study then in fairly recently in 2015 that showed a very strong correlation between specific live blood analysis indicators and metabolic syndrome. Now, all of these studies in live blood analysis are, of course, not to the scale required by conventional medicine, but they do show that what we're seeing in the blood sample is reliable and stands up to scientific testing.
Marvellous, thank you. We'll have protocol to know what to do when we find anomaly. That must be, do we provide the protocol to know what to do when we find the blood anomaly in the analysis?
Well, yes, absolutely. We list specific protocols under each anomaly in the manual. Now, this is covered in detail in the course and includes specific herbal and naturopathic formulations, as well as lifestyle changes that are needed to address each specific anomaly.
Okay, and the next one we have answered. Do I need a microscope to take the course? Do I need to buy a microscope to take the training course? What do I need to look for in a microscope?
All right, well, this is actually quite an important question. There are a few very important things to look for. So one of the most important features, and also it's one of the potential pitfalls for attendees, because not all microscopes or so-called dark field microscopes are actually suitable for live blood analysis. So one of the most important features to look for that actually sets proper dark field live blood analysis microscopes apart from other microscopes is its ability to do dark field analysis properly. Now, the first thing to look for with regards to dark field is the strength of the light source. A minimum of 50 watt halogen or the equivalent in LED it is required for dark field, and most standard microscopes and even so-called dark field microscopes only have a 20 watt halogen light source, or in some cases a 3 watt LED, which is equivalent to 30 watt halogen, but it's not nearly close enough to what is actually required for dark field. Now, our LED microscopes have a 9 watt LED light source, which is equivalent to 100 watt halogen. The microscope also needs to have a dedicated dark field oil immersion condenser, which is usually interchangeable with a bright field condenser. Good quality optics, of course, very important to prevent aberrations, and also a wide magnification range. Now, in live blood, we tend to use very high magnification, at least 1,000 times on the viewing screen. And in dry blood, we tend to use low magnification. So our microscopes typically have a magnification range of 40 to 4,000. They have additional magnification also going through to the viewing screen in the video tube of the camera. Now, this allows you then to get a magnification of 1,600 times on the screen with the 40 times objective, as opposed to the 400 times magnification with a standard microscope. Since live blood analysis needs a magnification of at least 1,000 times, this is quite an ideal feature as you're able to get to this level of magnification with a 40 times objective instead of having to use the 100 times objective. And this then also allows you to get to the 4,000 times magnification with the 100 times objective, which is really great to have if you have an interesting microbe that you need to look at. Now, the camera is also an important part of the system. Not all cameras are sensitive enough for dark field, and often the frame rate is looked. Often people look for the highest resolution camera that they can find. In most of these cameras, the frame rate tends to go down as the resolution goes up. So for smooth video in live blood, you need a frame rate of at least 30 frames per second, which is quite rare in higher resolution cameras. Now, our HDMI USB camera provides full HD resolution at a 60 frame per second frame rate.
Thank you. So the camera is also important to be able to get a good picture on the screen and also to take pictures, is that right?
Absolutely, yes. So the camera needs to actually be a digital USB camera. It needs to plug into a computer. Some of the older systems still have an old sort of analog type of camera that has a standard, old video cable that goes into a TV monitor. But with that type of setup, you're not really able to take, still images, and that's quite an important part of live blood analysis, because we need to be able to keep some sort of record so that when the clients come back for follow-up, they usually want to see if there's been any changes, and it's really important to have those images on hand from the first session to actually show and then compare.
Okay, thanks. And the lighting is very important to be able to see all of the anomalies in dark field as well, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, it needs to be at least a 50 watt halogen light source. And that in itself is fairly rare. Most of the microscopes don't have that type of feature. If you have or if you're able to microscope with a 50 watt halogen light source, you may be able to use the microscope for dark field analysis, but typically the ideal type of setup is 100 watt halogen. So that's why with our LED systems, the light is equivalent to 100 watt halogen. So you need that level of brightness to actually be able to see all the faint anomalies that are usually visible between the cells in dark field.
Okay, there's one more question on microscopes, and then we go on to the training course. Where's the best place to get a microscope, and how much do they cost?
Well, we do supply the best microscopes for live blood analysis. Now, this is something that's quite important to discuss because there are many microscopes on the market, and we get attendees, asking this question quite frequently. Many of these microscopes are fairly cheap, and they claim to be dark field microscopes, but they're not really suitable for live blood analysis. Mainly because of the features that we just discussed, the strength of the light source and so on. Now remember, the dark field is not exclusive to live blood analysis. It's a technique that's been used in microscopy for many years for various types of applications. However, the researchers that started working with live blood analysis in dark field found that there are a very specific set of requirements for a microscope to actually be suitable to analyze live blood in dark field properly. So most commercially available dark field microscopes don't have the necessary specifications. So this is a potential pitfall where you will not be able to see all the anomalies that you've learned about with a standard type of dark field microscope.
That's sorry.
So we've researched this extensively. I've No,
go on. I'll add on later.
All right. Yeah, so having studied live blood analysis and having worked with it, I've worked with many different types of microscopes myself. I've researched this quite extensively and have ensured that the microscopes that we offer have the best specifications for live blood analysis. Now, there are many unique features in our systems that are not available on other microscopes, like, for example, the strength of the light source, as well as the additional magnification going through to the viewing screen. So we believe that using any other system will be a compromise to some extent. We actually have a separate webinar on the subject of and what the main features are and why it's so important to have the right type of setup for dark field. So this would be an important one to look for if you looking for more information on the subject.
Thank you. Yeah, that webinar is actually on, that recording is actually on the Microscopes page of the website at www.lifebloodonline.com. So if you go to the Microscopes page there, you'll find the recording. Yeah, I was just going to say, we do have a lot of students that have made the mistake of buying microscopes from companies that say that the microscopes are for live blood analysis, but it's not that the companies are deliberately misrepresenting their microscopes. It's mainly that they actually don't know the specifications, the specialized specifications of dark field microscopy. So we've had quite a few problems with that. So do make sure with us before you buy a microscope, and we'll make sure that you don't make any expensive mistakes. Another question that we get an awful lot is, do I need a medical background to practice live blood analysis?
All right. Well, no, it's not actually a requirement. Blood analysis is not a medical diagnostic test. We don't detect any medical conditions with live blood analysis. So having a medical background is not a requirement. It is a technique that fits into the scope of natural medicine, nutrition, or if it's as it's often referred to, complementary and alternative medicine. The imbalances that we detect with live blood analysis really fits squarely into the realm of complementary medicine. So any person practicing any form of natural health or working in the field of nutrition will benefit from using live blood analysis on their clients.
Thank you. And how accurate is live blood analysis?
Well, it is very accurate when it is used correctly. In the various anomalies and interpretations have been verified by hundreds of practitioners using live blood analysis in their practices. If the results were not accurate and reliable, it simply work. Patients and practitioners alike would not benefit from it, and it would have whittled away many years ago. But instead, we have a growing base of practitioners who use it in their practices. Many of these practitioners are highly qualified and work in the field of integrative medicine, and they have found it to be an indispensable tool.
Marvellous, thank you. And what kind of illness will we be able to detect from the blood?
Well, that's an important question. You know, we're not able to detect any type of illness. It's not used to detect or diagnose illnesses. So if you expect to diagnose diseases with live blood analysis, you'll find that it falls short of the expectations. It's not really what live blood analysis was developed for. And those who use it successfully don't really use it to diagnose diseases. Instead, it provides you with information that you'll find will be very difficult to nearly impossible to uncover with any other technique. It allows you to uncover the underlying imbalances in the body's internal environment that facilitate the development of disease. So by addressing these imbalances, the underlying cause of the disease is then treated. So it allows you to home in on and to treat the actual cause of disease, which is the fundamental aim of what we do in natural medicine.
Thank you. And the next question is, what can live blood and dried blood microscopy highlight?
Well, there are quite a number of things. Quite a large number of imbalances can be detected with live blood analysis. We're able to detect underlying nutritional imbalances at the cellular level, various vitamin and mineral deficiencies, imbalances in the pH, the balance between nutrition and toxicity, candida, parasites, immune function, stress on various organ systems, hormonal imbalances, heavy metal toxicity, the risk of degenerative disease, and so on. There's quite a wide number of things that we're able to detect with it. We're also then able to choose the best course of treatment based on what was uncovered. And then this is quite a key benefit. We're able to monitor the client's progress during the course of treatment to see whether the treatment is actually working. We're also able to demonstrate the negative effects of an unhealthy diet to motivate people to actually make the necessary changes in these areas to prevent disease and improve their overall health. This really creates an interactive, a very different type of dynamic in the practice, and it really helps you to show your clients that most of their health is actually up to them, that they need to take responsibility for their own health. And this is quite a difficult thing to do without live blood analysis, especially in older clients who still tend to believe that the doctor is the custodian of their health.
Thank you. Is dry blood analysis the same as bolon analysis, B-O-L-E-N?
Yes, it's based on the same type of theory. So there's the several different terms for dry blood analysis. There's the oxidative stress test, the actual B test. So this is all part of the same type of analysis.
Thank you. And what's the difference between live blood analysis and other tests used by natural health practitioners, such as the quantum analyzers and biofeedback devices?
Well, in terms of what can be identified, there is some overlap between live blood analysis and some of these other devices, and we've seen a fairly strong correlation between the results from live blood analysis and certain biofeedback analyzers used by experienced practitioners. The actual test in itself is obviously quite different, and this is also then quite relevant in terms of the perceived credibility of the tests. Clients are generally quite confident in the results from live blood analysis, since they can see that it's their own blood that's being analyzed without anything being added or changed in their sample during the analysis, whereas they don't really understand how a biofeedback device works, and it's also quite difficult for practitioners to explain to their clients how these devices work. So people generally tend to be more skeptical of the results. We've also found that in live blood analysis, it's very easy to determine what the most important priorities are for each client's health. Only the most important issues are usually detected during an analysis, whereas after biofeedback analysis, it can be quite difficult to decide on where to start, as often there is just too much information. So inexperienced practitioners often find it very difficult. Lastly, the visual impact of live blood analysis is really unparalleled. Nothing really compares to it, and no other test has the same effect in motivating people, or sometimes giving them the wake-up call that they need to make the necessary changes. I've used many of these other devices in my practice, and I've seen without question that live blood analysis makes the greatest impact in practice.
Thank you. And the next question would require a webinar of its own, I think. Please explain the logic and validity of dry blood analysis and history.
All right, so in terms of dry blood analysis, it really was developed over time clinically, just from clinical observations. So there has been quite a bit of work done on this, and we have a understanding of how many of the anomalies actually develop, the mechanism behind how these anomalies develop in the dry blood samples. So we actually have a very clear understanding of the mechanism behind it. But in terms of the correlations between the patterns that are seen in dry blood and what they actually mean in terms of a client's health, these have just been established clinically over many years. So we know that there's a specific, for example, that correlates to intestinal problems. We know that there's a specific pattern that correlates to heavy metal toxicity, and these have been verified clinically in practice by thousands of practitioners using dry blood analysis, and we also tend to see that these anomalies improve when the recommended interventions are used. So the mechanism behind it relates to substances circulating in the blood that normally wouldn't be there in healthy cases, and this is also very useful then when working with clients, because we're able to see very, very easily by looking at their dry blood sample what the overall level of oxidative stress is, how much damage there is to the tissues as a result of oxidation, and we can then work out from what we're seeing how long one would expect improvements to take in those specific cases as well.
Thank you. And what is the best textbook resource you recommend to better understand more complex aspects of dark field live and dry blood analysis?
Well, we do have a few recommended textbooks that we do have a list of, but most of the information, well, all the information that you really will require to work competently with live and dry blood analysis will be provided in the course. So you'll get all the information that's needed properly work with live and dry blood analysis in practice.
Thank you. And we do send out a list of reading suggestions. Maybe I could send one to you, Ananda. I'll send you our recommended reading list. Okay. Is live blood analysis legal?
Well, yes, it is. There are some states in the US where the medical council has tried to prevent the practice of live blood analysis, but the technique is not regulated, and There are many practitioners in those states that are using live blood analysis. Now, instead of using the term live blood analysis, they say they're using it as an educational tool to educate their clients on nutrition, diet, and lifestyle. The only real risk is when practitioners make claims about being able to diagnose medical conditions, which is of course not what live blood analysis should be used for. Now, we do cover the legal aspects in detail during the course to ensure that our attendees can use the technique safely without putting themselves or their clients at risk. There's also provision for pastoral medicine in the US that many of the practitioners using live blood analysis make use of, that allows them to practice safely without any legal risk.
Thank you. And will I be able to offer blood cell analysis after the training?
Well, yes, we issue a certificate which is CMA approved. Although live blood analysis is not regulated, it is, of course, important to be able to prove that you've received formal training. Most attendees who started working with the correct microscope from early on in the course are able to start offering live blood analysis in their practices by the end of the course.
The next one I think we've covered. What does live blood analysis show? We have covered that, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. We have answered that one.
I'm in Australia. What about the time difference?
Well, we have attendees from all over the world in different time zones, and this is then where the recordings are very useful. Attendees in different time zones can view the recordings later and post their questions to the private Facebook page. The fact that the lessons are recorded is also very useful for giving practitioners the ability to go over and review the lessons as many times as they like, and also if you've had to miss a lesson for any reason. We believe that by providing the recordings, we actually offer a huge advantage in the training course.
Thank you. And isn't it better to study hands-on?
Well, we believe that we provide the best format to study live blood analysis. What you would learn from hands-on training is actually covered in detail in the course during the lessons and in the form of videos. We go through the microscope settings and how to take blood samples correctly in detail. And since everything is recorded, you can also go back and review it as many times as you like. Now, this is not the case in hands-on training. We found that people often forget much of what they learned after a 2 to 3 day hands-on course. And then, of course, there's nowhere for them to go to review the information.
Okay, thank you. And do you provide backup? I suppose that's after the training course.
Yes, we do provide email support for our course attendees and full after-sales support with a 2-year warranty on our microscopes. And then, of course, we have the private Facebook page where attendees can post questions, interact, and also continue learning.
Are you regulated?
Yes, we are. We are CMA approved. That's the Complementary Medical Association in the UK, and we're also in the process of registering with the American Alternative Medical Association.
Thank you. And what's the difference between a medical blood test and live blood analysis?
All right, well, there's a number of things. Live blood analysis is quite different from conventional medical blood tests. We use capillary blood and view the blood in its fresh an altered state. In medical blood tests, the blood is of course drawn from a vein and is only viewed hours later after staining the blood, thereby effectively killing the cells. Live blood analysis is much more sensitive for a wide number of anomalies than conventional blood tests, so we're able to see a number of imbalances in live blood analysis long before any imbalances can be detected in a conventional blood test. So for this reason, medical blood tests are really more suited to diagnosing medical conditions, whereas live blood analysis is more used for prevention.
Okay, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of the questions. Unless you have any more questions, please put them in the box. Thank you very much for joining us on this webinar. We hope it's been of help, and we hope to have answered some of your questions. If you do have any further questions, then please do send them into info@lifebloodlondon.co.uk, and we'll be glad to answer them. And also, if you do go to the website www.lifebloodonline.com, there is a Q&A tab on the top. If you go to that, there's a lot of common questions there. The next training course will begin Tuesday, September the 24th. Do let us know. Yes, we have a question. Training starts on the 24th of September. That's absolutely right. That's a Tuesday. Do let us know if you'd like to get signed up, and we'll get you signed up for that. A lot of students are actually enrolling now, so they can get the material a little bit before the course, so they can get studying for the course. Obviously, some people have still have some holiday. Is a 2000 times 3 watt LED system acceptable to learn this technique until I'm able to get a higher quality system like you recommend?
Yes, absolutely. So you will be able to enroll and start the course with that microscope. But as I mentioned, with dark field, 3 watt LED won't really be suitable. Typically, that's equivalent still to 20 watt halogen. So you're not really going to be able to see all the anomalies clearly in dark field with that system, but you certainly will be able to enroll in the course and get started. And then when you are ready to start working with clients in an actual practice, you can look at upgrading the microscope to a full dark field system.
Thank you. Okay, let me just answer a quick question here. Just bear with me. Here we go. Okay, any more questions, please put them in the box. No, that seems to be it. Chris, the only thing I need to find out if you will allow a pay of plan for your course. It's a lot of money to pay in one go. With our exchange rate, he's in South Africa. So we'll email you later about that, Chris. We do have a payment plan, a 2-part payment plan, where you pay for the course to start, and then you pay the second halfway through the training course. So we'll send you information about that. And of course, if anyone else wants to know about that, then do please just drop us an email. Okay, so thank you very much again for joining us, and thank you very much, Dr. Ocker. And we hope to see you on the training course. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just as I mentioned earlier, from all the types of tests and techniques that I've used in the practice, live blood analysis has made the biggest difference. It really has taken my practice to a completely different level. So yeah, I hope that the people that have joined us this evening will look at integrating it into their practices.
Lovely. Okay, and Andrea says that she sent some questions to info@lifeblood London. So we'll be answering those by email to you, Andrea. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you on the training course. So thank you very much from me, and thank you, Dr. Ocker.
Thank you very much. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.